Right now, private laboratories and sovereign states are aggressively scaling up frontier AI systems, surging resources into data pipelines to build increasingly advanced models. But this rapid expansion is colliding with a basic geopolitical reality. There is no global supranational authority that can dictate what states or corporations do with this technology. Any international coordination on AI relies purely on voluntary state participation. This creates a misalignment of incentives driving AI development. For developers and states, there is a massive economic and military advantage to being the first to deploy an advanced system. The reward for speed is immediate and tangible. Conversely, investments in AI safety and reliability are heavily discounted. Safety is non-excludable and non-rivalrous. If one lab spends months making a model secure, the whole world benefits, but that specific lab pays the entire cost in lost time and resources.
These misaligned incentives create a classic collective action problem.
Without a mechanism to coordinate, rational actors will consistently underinvest in reliability to ensure they don't lose the deployment race. This collective action problem is accelerated by what policymakers call deep uncertainty. Even the engineers building foundation models cannot accurately bound their future capabilities or map the precise trajectory of their development. Historically, global security frameworks relied on tracking threats with a massive physical footprint. You can count centrifuges, monitor uranium enrichment, and identify weapons from orbit. AI subverts that physical governance model. Once an advanced model is trained, it exists purely as digital weights, files that can be copied to a hard drive and distributed globally in an instant. Furthermore, the technical safeguards that labs implement today, like reinforcement learning from human feedback, are fragile. A malicious actor with access to the model weights can easily strip those protections away post-deployment. Because of this deep uncertainty and digital fluidity, waiting to write an all-encompassing AI treaty is a strategic error. The target moves too fast. High sovereign upside, unquantifiable risk, and instant digital proliferation guarantee a tragedy of the AI commons. To prevent this, we have to design specific, modular institutional interventions. To alter the incentives of AI developers, policy experts propose a framework built on 4 core cooperative functions: research, standard setting, monitoring, and verification. Pillar 1 is research. Before states coordinate, they need a shared baseline of facts regarding emergent model capabilities and system vulnerabilities. International research takes 2 proven forms. The first is a centralized physical approach, like the European Organization for Nuclear Research. This model pools international engineering resources to build massive infrastructure, like particle accelerators, that no single state could fund alone. The second is a decentralized model, favored by organizations like the OECD. Rather than building physical labs, this approach relies on synthesizing localized economic and technical data from member states to establish a verified global consensus. In the context of deep uncertainty, internationally validated research is a mandatory first step. Sovereign states will not commit to costly constraints without objective, agreed-upon proof of the risk. Once research identifies the risks, Pillar 2, standard setting, prescribes the practices to mitigate them. In practice, AI standards are specific technical parameters. They outline exact methodologies for model evaluation, define protocols for hardware security at data centers, and dictate rules for post-training data management. But these international standards, formulated by bodies like the ISO or ASTM, operate under a critical constraint. They are inherently voluntary. Because they lack enforcement power, these organizations rely on norm building. They have to convince rather than coerce, establishing a global consensus of acceptable developer behavior.
These voluntary standards gain actual leverage when sovereign governments adopt them. By incorporating an ISO standard into domestic law or making it a requirement for government procurement contracts, states give the standard economic teeth. This shifts the game theory matrix. Standard setting creates the precise technical definitions needed to differentiate between a state acting responsibly and one defecting from the global order. Pillar 3 is monitoring. Its function is to resolve the information asymmetry that fuels international paranoia. Political scientists use a specific typology, visualized here as a split-screen logic flow, to describe how international bodies execute surveillance. This forces a choice between two distinct strategies: active police patrols and passive fire alarms. For AI, a police patrol approach means actively tracking the physical inputs required to train frontier models. This involves monitoring specialized chip supply chains and tracking energy consumption of centralized data centers. The fire alarm approach is decentralized. It relies on creating standardized incident reporting networks that alert the community only when an AI anomaly, capability jump, or misuse event actually occurs. By making physical compute pipelines and digital incidents visible, monitoring eliminates the blind spots. When states know they aren't falling behind in secret, they are less pressured to engage in a race to the bottom. Pillar 4 is verification. This is the final requirement for establishing credible commitments between distrustful sovereigns. Verification can take the form of the physical inspection model. Here, trained third-party personnel cross borders to directly audit facilities and confirm compliance. Alternatively, organizations like the Financial Action Task Force use an economic and reputational enforcement model. They utilize rigorous peer reviews and public blacklists to exert bureaucratic pressure on non-compliant actors. Mapping these techniques onto AI involves executing rigorous third-party audits of data centers and conducting external model evaluations. This is how you prove whether a laboratory is actually adhering to safety standards or claiming to. Without robust verification, the preceding 3 pillars collapse. Verification is the enforcer. It ensures a state's claims about AI safety are mathematically and procedurally true. These 4 functional pillars dictate the macro structure of global policy. They also demonstrate why attempting to build a single monolithic IAEA for AI is the wrong structural blueprint. AI presents diverse risks. Mitigating AI bioweapons requires completely different combinations of research, monitoring, and verification than managing mass economic displacement. Therefore, AI governance requires a regime complex, a decentralized network where multi-stakeholder groups, treaties, and standards bodies operate concurrently to address specific vectors. This decentralized approach is structurally superior. A web of overlapping institutions is far more resilient to the deep uncertainties of sudden AI capability jumps than a rigid, centralized treaty could ever be. Effective global AI governance will never look like a single building in Geneva. It will be a decentralized network of overlapping authorities. There remains an intimidating level of uncertainty regarding exactly when milestones like automated scientific research or artificial general intelligence might be achieved. But the immediate policy mandate is clear. States must build capacity across the 4 functional pillars right now. We cannot wait for the technology's trajectory to settle. The AI tragedy of the commons will not be solved by a single high-profile diplomatic summit. It requires the ongoing, mechanical execution of research, standard setting, monitoring, and verification. By treating global AI governance as a rigorous engineering problem of incentives, rather than a purely political one, we construct the institutional scaffolding required to manage increasingly capable and autonomous systems.